In preparation for her dinner, a woman purchased mushrooms from an unknown vendor. She later grilled those mushrooms and fed them to her family. About 9 hours later, they began experiencing nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Her 18-month-old daughter eventually needed a liver transplant and suffered permanent brain damage. Mushrooms are unpredictable. You can eat them, get high off them, but some can kill you. However, new research also indicates that they could be used to treat a previously incurable disorder. Dr. Ronald R. Griffiths highlights to Forbes on September 12, 2019, that this new psilocybin treatment could offer an entirely new paradigm for treating major depressive disorder, also known as MDD. One woman with chronic depression articulates her struggles to HuffPost on April 3, 2019, saying, "My medications stopped working. My depression creeps back in. Once I finally ask for help, my doctors and I begin the guessing game of finding a new medication. Still, I wake up each morning afraid of my own brain chemistry." Today, we'll lift up those suffering from MDD and get them high, because psilocybin, yes, shrooms, could be the cure to major depressive disorder. First, we'll trip over the problems of MDD. Second, we'll reach enlightenment during the psilocybin treatment process. And finally, we'll explore a future where we can all be like Mario and benefit from shrooms. To name Mother Julie Uglahat, depression was a foreign concept, but that was until she experienced it after the birth of her first daughter. Diagnosed with postpartum depression, she battled isolation and suicidal thoughts. Like Julie, countless suffer from depression and its three main problems: suicide, ineffective medications, and how these popular treatments can lead to even more suicides, making this a dangerous cycle. The World Health Organization on January 30th, 2020 explains that depression affects more than 264 million people. And for people aged 15 to 29 years old, suicide is the second leading cause of death. The National Institute of Mental Health on May 31st, 2019 reports how 63-year-old entrepreneurs seemingly had it all, but due to the economic crisis, he grew depressed. Suicidal ideation was the only relief he had from the pain that he was experiencing. After writing letters to his children, and moments before using his gun to kill himself, he made a phone call to a friend. That friend was able to get him to a psychiatric hospital where he was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. He was saved, but many in this scenario are not as fortunate. Scientists have yet to understand the full complexity of major depressive disorder. Johns Hopkins Medicine on February 17, 2020 details how people are forced to try SSRIs, SSNRIs, TCAs, MAOIs, bupropion, and esketamine, all which have been developed to help treat depression but continue to fail many. One common treatment is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. Many people using these treatments wait up to 3 weeks to feel any sort of change. They're often left feeling numb in the process, leading to a disconnect from oneself and not knowing whether their emotions are real, causing many to give up on their treatments. And while many seek treatments, they're often ineffective and possibly dangerous. Newsweek on March 23, 2019 confesses that antidepressants don't work for up to 30% of people with depression. Along with this, exposure to SSRIs comes along with its own set of risks as well. For over a decade, the FDA has included a black box warning on common antidepressants. Mayo Clinic on June 25, 2019 cautions an increase in suicidal ideation amongst young people. Harvard Medical School on March 19, 2019 declared the lifetime suicide rate of people with major depression is 15% despite all efforts to treat it. Julie's husband started microdosing mushrooms to help with her growing depression and suicidal ideation. Yet, researchers warn heavily against self-medicating, instead advocating for their process to help treat major depressive disorder, which we'll explore through the background, the trial, and the results. Dr. Ronald R. Griffiths, the head of the Center for Psychedelic Research, hypothesized that psilocybin would help those with MDD. In the United States, Psilocybin became classified as a Schedule I drug in 1970, and The Atlantic on May 16, 2019 remarks that making this a Schedule I drug was based on the assumption that there were no medical benefits. However, Science Times on November 27, 2019 revealed that psilocybin affects the amygdala, reducing anxiety and fear, allowing for the symptoms of MDD to diminish. The London Imperial College conducted a psilocybin therapy trial. The London Imperial College conducted a psilocybin therapy trial, and The Independent on June 8, 2019 outlines the process. 60 participants in the double-blind study were allocated either a placebo, an SSRI, or a dose of psilocybin, accompanied by a therapy session to help guide through the psychedelic experience and confront past traumas. Yet, patients described themselves as being reset, reborn, and rebooted after having used psilocybin. More than half of the group was in remission just 3 weeks after the trial. And the Telegraph on September 13, 2019 concludes that while some relapsed after 3 or 6 months, some were still depression-free several years later. The Guardian on June 10, 2019 echoes Michael, a man who struggled with chronic depression. After 50 minutes of anxiously waiting for the drug to kick in, Michael embarked on a 5-hour journey into his own mind where he relived a range of childhood memories and confronted past grief. He illustrates, "I became a different person. I couldn't wait to get into the world and see people. I was confident." While Julie's microdosing helped alleviate her depression, the practice of microdosing is not without its risks, similar to both the dangers and benefits accompanying the future of psilocybin therapy, which we'll explore through mental health risks, the cost, and potential advantages. Though there have been promising results, there are mental health risks. Dr. Lawrence Weinstein, the Chief Medical Officer for American Addiction Centers, cautions to Insider on January 24, 2019, that psychological distress is the most common adverse effect reported after use of psilocybin. He continues saying that this can range from a bad trip to disturbing hallucinations that can last for days. The New York Times on May 16, 2019 revealed that psychedelic researchers screened volunteers carefully, excluding those at risk of serious mental illness like schizophrenia, because in rare instances, magic mushrooms can cause a psychotic break. And while they can cause a psychotic break, they sure can break the bank as well. The Economist on June 8, 2019 notes that because so little psilocybin is produced, getting a hold of it is tricky and expensive. Forbes on September 12, 2019 notes that patients received 2 doses of psilocybin in just a span of 2 weeks, meaning treatment can cost upwards of $4,000. A staggering number considering this is just something that grows out of the ground. Although there may be obstacles, psilocybin has shown potential in other areas as well, such as treating people with progressive diseases and disorders. Cancer patients suffering from anxiety and depression received the psilocybin treatment, and the NBC News on January 28, 2020 highlights that 5 years later, nearly 80% were still experiencing reduced symptoms. Bloomberg News on December 12, 2019 revealed that scientists are now seeking mushrooms for other ailments, including Alzheimer's, anorexia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and migraines. If shrooms are legalized, the possibilities are out of this world. Today, we fell down the rabbit hole into the problems of MDD. Second, we opened the secret door of the psilocybin process. And finally, we wandered into Wonderland as we saw the future of magic mushrooms. Psilocybin could be the help we need for those tormented by debilitating MDD. So remember, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids, but trips could be helpful for those with major depressive disorder.